Indiana Jones is one of the best movie franchises, and Steven Spielberg and George Lucas did some amazing work to put it right up there with the greats. It made Harrison Ford one of the best all-American action stars. There are loads of action sequences in Indiana Jones, and it's so tough to choose a few. But still, in this video, we'll talk about some of the best action sequences from the franchise. Let's start. First up at number 10, the fight in Shanghai nightclub. Let's just start on a lighter note. Although it isn't light in any sense of the word, as compared to all the others we're going to talk about, it is a bit light. This sequence took place in the 1984 release Temple of Doom. This movie's a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark because it has events that happened before the movie, and we can confidently say that most of you guys will remember this sequence because it's unforgettable. There's Indiana Jones having some perfectly peaceful and normal negotiations with a bunch of gangsters at a nightclub in Shanghai. But it seems that nothing's peaceful and civil when Indiana Jones is involved in it. During the negotiations, the gangster shot his friend and informant, which resulted in his death, and Indiana lost it. Plus, to mess more with him, the gangsters tell Indy that he has been poisoned, and they throw the antidote across the room. He then runs around the nightclub after the antidote while it's being kicked around by the running civilians who have no idea something's under their feet. All this was happening while the gangsters were shooting at him. This is just too good not to be mentioned.
Where's the diamond?
Up next at number 9, Indy escapes the temple with the golden idol. This one's the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Before talking about what happened, we'll say that this is the scene that perfectly introduced Indy's character to the world. So, in this scene, Jones Jr. and one of his companions, Satipo, are deep inside a jungle where they find an ancient temple. To go inside the temple, they had to pass through all the different types of obstacles. They faced some creepy crawlies and different kinds of traps on their way in. They somehow managed to get inside the temple and found what they came for, the golden idol. But to pick up the golden idol, he had to replace it with something of the same weight. Otherwise, everything would be destroyed. He does exactly that. He replaces it with a bag of sand, which he thought was of the same weight, but clearly it wasn't. For a second, everything was fine, but suddenly the temple started to crumble. But Indy still somehow manages to escape the crumbling temple by escaping flying arrows and a rolling boulder. Coming up at number 8, the Zeppelin escape scene. In Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Indy and his father were trying to run away from in a biplane. The biplane was attached to a Zeppelin, and they flew away in that plane. As they were fleeing away, they were also being chased by a German officer in another biplane. Indy was trying his best to escape the German officer while his father was trying to shoot them. But it seemed like that guy had never shot a gun in his life before, because he accidentally shot the tail of their own plane, which made Indy lose control, and both of them came crashing down. His father denied shooting the tail and said that the enemy had shot it down. But deep down, Indy himself knew that it was his father who accidentally shot it. They crash-landed the plane and ran away in a car because the enemy planes were still after them. Henry Sr., Indy's father, finally does something good and takes an enemy plane down using an umbrella. Yes, an umbrella. He spooked some birds on the ground using an umbrella, and the birds flew away only to get caught in the plane's engine, which helped bring that plane down. R.I.P. to those birds, though.
Let my armies be the rocks and the trees and the birds in the sky.
Next up at number 7, jumping from a crashing plane. Another brilliant sequence from the Temple of Doom. Indy, Willie, and Short Round successfully managed to run away from the gangsters in Shanghai using a plane. At least they've escaped, because it turned out that the plane they used to escape is owned by the gangsters. While airborne, the pilot of the plane jumped out using a parachute, leaving those 3 behind to die. But Indy always finds a way to save himself and his companions, and that's exactly what he did on this occasion as well. As the plane was about to crash into the mountain, Indy's mind clicked, and he grabbed an inflatable raft because there were no more parachutes on that plane. He asked both of them to hop in and jumped from the plane. After a successful landing, the raft kept sliding because it was all downhill, and unfortunately there are no brakes on a raft. The trio kept sliding down on that raft until they ended up in a river. But the most important thing is that everyone was okay, and that makes this scene even more special. Now at number 6, a fight against the swordsman. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indy's confronted by a swordsman who thinks that he can take the mighty Indiana Jones down, but that's never gonna happen. The swordsman shows off his skills, acrobatic moves, quick feet, and whatnot to scare Indy. But is it possible to scare Indy away? We don't think so. Indy doesn't move an inch. He just took out his revolver and shot straight at the swordsman and killed him. That's how easy it is for a man like Indy. There was some news at the time that this sequence was originally supposed to be a proper fight sequence between Indiana Jones and the swordsman, but while shooting in Tunisia, Harrison Ford along with some other members of the cast and crew got sick, and they decided against spending more time there. So in order to spend less time shooting the scene, they just decided to shoot the guy straight away, which actually turned out to be cool, didn't it? At number 5, a young Indiana Jones in action. The opening scene of The Last Crusade rolls back the years and tells us more about Indy's days when he was younger and was a Boy Scout. Jones gets to know that some guys have stolen a precious artifact and are trying to sell it on the black market. Indy tries to investigate the situation and nabs the artifact from the guys by telling them that it belongs in a museum. They chased him through the desert and all of them end up on a circus train with all the circus equipment. That's when Indy's introduced to the iconic bullwhip for the first time, when he scares away a lion using it. Yeah, Indy also came across a lion in that train, but was also saved by the boys who were after him.
Belongs to Coronado.
Coronado's dead, and so are all of his grandchildren.
This should be in a museum.
Now give it back.
But then he managed to run away from them once again. Classic Indy. Placed at number 4, the minecart chase. An unusual ride to chase after each other, but the creators thought the minecart would be a good option, and it was. They wanted to create this sequence for the first Indiana Jones movie, but weren't able to fit it in. Eventually, they had to put it in the Temple of Doom, and it looks like both of them are a perfect match. The scene perfectly fits the story of that movie. It's an exciting sequence, and the minecart ride basically turned into a roller coaster ride for them. It has everything. Indy flying over like Tarzan holding ropes and escaping from enemies in a minecart. There isn't much more you could ask for from an Indiana Jones movie. Now number 3, fighting a huge guy under a plane. It's fun to see when Indy's able to beat his opponents without any problem whatsoever. He just single-handedly destroys them like it's not even a problem. But it's even more fun to watch when he takes on a guy who is stronger and bigger than him. Something similar happened in this scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indy takes on a huge mechanic and fights him under a plane. At first, no one thought that Indy would be able to defeat him because just look at the size of that dude. But nothing's impossible when you're Indiana Jones. Well, to be honest, Indy got a bit lucky, but still, he was able to beat him, and as a result, one of the most gruesome scenes of the franchise also happened, when the mechanic just turned into ketchup after his head collided with a spinning propeller of the plane. So tough to even imagine something like this. Coming up is number 2, the tank chase. Henry Sr. and Marcus have been captured, and of course, Indy decides to rescue them. Who wouldn't rescue their father? Indy chased a number of tanks and destroyed them while being on the back of a horse. That's quite amazing. He just fought everyone and got to the tank in which his father and Marcus were captured, and he got them both out safely. These types of scenes are why people love Indiana Jones movies so much, and this is what makes Indy so good as a character. No wonder Indiana Jones is one of the best action characters out there. Finally, number 1, the truck chase. Now, it's time for the best action scene in the whole Indiana Jones franchise, and it wasn't so tough for us to choose the best. There's only one scene that deserves to be called the best, and that's the truck chase scene. This happened in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Back in those days when these movies were made, there was no technology of the sort to help them make computer-generated scenes. So, a dangerous scene like this one had to be performed by the stuntman himself, and hats off to the guy who pulled it off. For this scene, the stuntman had to be dragged along the desert tied behind a truck by a bullwhip, and Indy fights a number of as well to make this scene even better. We can't even imagine how the stuntman pulled it off, but he did, and did it to perfection. That's a wrap for this video. Is there any other scene you want to add to this list? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.